Okay, we're here today. This is March 13, 2004. Wow. In the home of Richard B. TDC Thompson. This is, I think, Dick, this is the fifth of a series that I've done of these video interviews for the club. And we want to capture the kind of people of your caliber that are sort of the core of the club, the people that have made the club famous, if you will. And so what I'd like to do is to kind of go through some I'll use the term pro forma questions, Dick, about where you were born and raised and education, and then we'll talk a little bit about the fly fishing part of your life. So.
Okay, sounds good. Well, way back in 1926, I was born in the little old town of Fresno, California, in the San Joaquin Valley. But I had the smarts to get out of there before I was 6 months old. We moved over to Santa Cruz on the Monterey Bay on the coast. And to a certain degree, that's where I grew up until graduated from high school, a couple of years in the Army, infantryman in the Philippines, etc., and came back from there, and then I went to college at what was known then as San Jose State College in San Jose, California. Now better known as Silicon Valley, I guess.
Right.
And well, in there was a creek probably a mile or so within bicycling distance of the home in Santa Cruz, and there were 3 or 4 of us that got interested in fishing there, and unfortunately most of it was salmon eggs at that time, or little spinners or something. But anyhow, that's where I first started fishing. But between then and well, after college, there was no fishing involved, and after San Jose State, I moved from there to Seattle to do graduate work at the University of Washington College of Fisheries. And I don't know, is that too much light?
No, we're okay. I think we're fine, Betty.
I think she was getting
It was reflected.
reflected from
I
see.
glass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So, and then I was with the Fisheries Research Institute at the University of Washington, which was sort of the research arm of the college. And after that, it was supported by the salmon industry, but after a couple of bad salmon years, that the budget for that outfit decreased quite a bit, and I transferred to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service over in Montlake Boulevard, just across the canal from the university. And I met Carl, what's his, can't think of his last name.
It wasn't Carl Coggins. Not Carl Coggins.
No, Carl,
Donaldson?
no, gee. Anyhow, he was quite a fisherman. We got together and fished together a couple of times, and then he invited me as a guest to come to the meeting of the Washington Fly Fishing Club. And that's when the club was still meeting at the Edmund Meany Hotel. And I remember the first time I was there, that at the time they'd say in the meeting it came around to introducing the guests, and Carl had to go out to the restroom, I guess, and so I had to stand up and introduce myself. A bit of a beyond my character. But after I did that, and I said that I was Carl's guest, and I was a fishery biologist and working with the Fish and Wildlife Service at that time. There was a young fellow with a crew cut just sitting across the table from me, and after I sat down, he said, "Oh, okay, you're a biologist, now tell me all you know about rainbow trout." So I chatted with Boyd Egner at the time, and of course we spent probably 30 years fishing together, some hunting together, and I tried to fill him in on what I knew about trout and put a little bit of fiction in too to see if he could tell the difference, and he usually did. I wasn't a very good liar at that time anyhow. And then of course after that I did join the club in 1955, and enjoyed it ever since, right up till today. And
What offices did you hold, Dick? Were you ever president of the club? I can't remember.
yes,
Uh-huh.
in fact, I'm one of the few that just jumped right into the presidency. At that time, there seemed to be sort of a division between the groups in the club. There was the engineers, a lot of them from Boeing, and then there was the downtown business people. And I guess that the nominating committee wanted to get somebody that was not aligned with either one of those organizations or those divisions.
Right.
And I was really shocked to even be approached by the nominating committee, but they talked me into it, and that was in 1960.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And I don't know, we kind of resolved those things, and then at least to the point that Joe Anderson was the next president in '61. And I don't think that sort of division within the club has ever existed since then, at least not to my knowledge.
Right, right. Who were your sponsors, Dick?
Carl Elling, that's his name.
Oh, Elling. Oh,
Carl Elling,
yeah, Callahan's buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, John and I are trying to, we've been trying to get Carl back up to Leech Lake, which is one of his favorite lakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Carl's a wonderful guy.
Yeah,
he's
he is.
great, yeah. Well, that's great. So you've held offices. I know, Dick, there were some awards Dick was a recipient of. The Empty Creel Award, the Half-Assed Award, which he got in 1971, and both of those the same year. You got both.
The same meeting I walked out was the good one and the embarrassing one.
And then Dick was a recipient of the Tommy Brayshaw Award in 1980, so that's great. I remember, one of the things I remember, Dick, is you and I worked on a demographics back in somewhere around in 80. And I don't remember the exact year, but tell us a little bit about the purpose of that and what we found out.
Well, there was some controversy at that time about the membership of the club, and it seemed to me that we really didn't know who we were at the time. And I guess I just designed this questionnaire, and it was to be anonymous. Nobody was forced to put their name down and everything. But it was kind of amusing. One guy was anonymous up to the final point, but then he said that his career was the outdoor writer for the Seattle Times. It was quite apparent who that was.
Right, right.
And what we were looking at was age and activity, and we even asked income just to see what the economic basis of the membership was. And it turned out pretty good. I think that it was instrumental in some of the following activities and operations of the fly club. And then long after that happened, in fact one of them was about 5 years ago, that somebody from the, I believe it was the Edmonds Club, that got in touch with me and wanted to have a copy of one of the questionnaire forms, which I was fortunate enough able to find at that time. And they were going to do the same thing. But I think the main thing that pointed out was that the fly club at that time was pretty overweighted with almost elderly members. I forget what the mean age, the average age was, but I think it was about 60.
It was. I remember that, Dick. In fact, one of the things I remember we talked about as a result of that, and the club still, to this day, is concerned about that demographic where we're skewed to the right so badly that our average age is, we look like we're a cliff and the whole club will perish because everyone will, be gone. But the reality is that we're finding that we're actively recruiting youth, for one thing, and the other thing we're doing is we're trying to build affiliate club members, if you will, to kind of be
sort
associated with us.
A junior
Type,
club.
yeah. Chris Christopher's working on that.
Well, I think that's very wise because I belong to a hunting and fishing club, and average age 73 or so, and there's a danger of the whole thing collapsing because of the lack of membership. And
right.
These are unable to participate in anything anymore. And it's very important to keep the recruiting operation going.
It is, and I think one of the problems you get into as you skew the age, that far to the right, you end up with no one wants to take the leadership role,
That's
because
true.
you get burned out in
Well, even some of the activities require some input and some physical operation, and if they don't want to do that, then you're losing that part of your activities anyhow.
Right. So Dick, obviously, you're famous for a fly. In fact, so famous you even have a license plate on your truck, and that's the only way I could find his house today. I had to search out the truck in the back barn, as they say. Tell us a little bit about how that fly pattern was developed.
Well, it started on Sand Lake. Boyd Agner and I were over there fishing, and we knew that they were fishing the lake, and that the clear water, we could see the fish, but we couldn't catch them very well. Well, I finally caught one. It was only about 10 inches long, but I thought that it was important enough to take a stomach sample. So I cleaned the fish and looked inside and its stomach, and here were all these wiggling little black and white worms. And I really at that time didn't know what they were, but I saved some and in the preservative that I had along with me. But in the meantime, I went back to the car and I tied up my best impression of what I had seen, and went back out, and of course Agner was asking, "What the hell have you been doing in there? What have you been doing in there?" and all that. And I guess it was not the first cast, but one or two, and I saw a fish and I cast towards them, but the nymph landed probably about 10-15 feet away, but that fish came and zapped onto that thing real quick, and at that point I felt that I had something that was pretty effective. And I'd only tied 3 of them, I think, went back in the car, and after I'd taken about 3 or 4 fish, and Boyd had not, he came over close to see what was going on, and I think by that time I'd lost a nymph on a fish, and I had the only 2, so he insisted that I share with him. Anyhow, we both had a pretty good day after that, and then there was on the drive home, or since we both at that time thought we had something that was pretty important, and he said, "Well, we got to learn what to call this," and he says, "Well, we got to keep it secret though for a while." All that stuff that Boyd was famous for. So anyhow, that's where the TDC came about, and it was, I guess, a few years before before the acronym got filled out to Thompson's Delectable Chironomid, which a lot of people couldn't even pronounce because of that. But anyhow, that was the TDC. And
did you ever, there was a rumor to some effect, or maybe not a rumor, you have to clarify it, but that you actually used scuba gear and dove under the water somewhere and watched them rise to see the taking on the oxygen as they rose, and that became what Brian Chan now calls chromies, as they call it. But
well, I was in Lake Washington as part of the job. We had purchased a diving bell to watch underwater phenomenon, particularly in salt water at the time. But we tried it out there off Sand Point in Lake Washington at night. I don't know why we did it at night. Anyhow, I had our regional director in the diving bell with me, and as we were about to come up, we went down, rested on the bottom, and then fooled around with all of the technological stuff. But as we started to go up, and we had a light on the outside, and all of a sudden I saw this thing kind of wiggling through the water. Couldn't figure out what it was. First I thought it was so bright, I thought it was a little fish, the scales and all the brightness of that. But I finally identified it as a chironomid pupa rising towards the surface. And it can't swim, of course, but they do produce this gas in the pupal case, which at that point is pretty transparent. And the gas bubble, of course, looks shiny by reflecting light and all. And it was just kind of wiggling as it went up, and I identified it as the chironomid pupa. So that it didn't make me want to modify my pattern at all, but it verified what I thought happened underwater about the activity of the pupa coming up through the water column.
Was your original pattern, did it have tinsel on it?
Yes.
It did? Okay.
Yeah.
So you at least recognized it
just
had a
that,
rib of some kind. And
Black wool with the tinsel wrapped over that, and a little bit of a thorax, and then the ostrich herald for the imitation of the gills on the front of the thing.
Did you also invented another pattern that was published pattern, I think it's called the Sam pattern?
Oh, the Sam Black?
Sam Black,
Sam
right,
Green.
that's right.
Yeah. Well, and then again, people worried about the acronym, and of course, when I tied it, I thought it was a striped-ass monster, but changed that, I guess, for popular consumption to striped aft monster. But it turned out to be very effective. It was a wonderful pattern in Pass Lake, and that's the only other time I think I've shared a new pattern was with Ed Foss up there. We were anchored about 50 feet away apart, and I, of course, would time the thing with a heavy sinking line, time it, give it about 20 seconds to get down to close to the bottom. And of course, that pattern had the hook upright,
Right.
so it didn't get snagged up so much, and then whatever plants or anything were down there. And Ed was imitating my pattern, my technique, but he didn't have the right fly, so I tried to give him one, but he said, "No, hell with that," and he left for lunch. But it worked pretty good.
Do you, the moose mane upright, is that another pattern of yours, specific of yours?
Yeah, sort of. That was to imitate the Calabades in Chupacabra, yeah. And it worked pretty good. I think just the upright indicated the leading edge of the wing of the emergent mayflies were coming up. And I had a little bit of hackle behind it, but not much. And then the rest of it was the parachute type pattern.
Right. It's a really beautiful pattern. I'm fortunate I've got one. I don't have a TDC tied by Dick Thompson, but I do have a Sam, and I've got a moose mane upright in my collection. Those are, I keep those in a box where you can't, they're not fishable flies, they're collectible flies. So, any other memories, club memories that are outstanding, like really best fishing outings or unusual happenings that you can think of?
Oh, not really. There have been so many. You know, I've been in the club for almost 60 years, I guess. The last course, 11 or 12, is an associate member over here, but I still get the creel notes now by email, which is pretty interesting. But, there have been some faux pas like up at Chopaka, the Chinese fire drill arrangements.
Oh, you mean the fires themselves? Or
Yeah. Oh, that was, well, I forget all the details. Anyway, I think it was Jerry Sugamili and I were headed down in our boats. This was when we still could use motors up there. And he borrowed a motor, I think, from Wayne Daly. And unfortunately, he was mooching with the motor, as I recall. But then the motor stopped, I think, and he didn't know it, but he drifted back over the line, and we got the motor going again, which kind of wrapped it up and made a quick retrieve reel out of the propeller. And so I went over there to try to, help him raise the motor and everything. And of course, I couldn't turn the motor, but I was trying to do it, and I hit the prop, three-bladed prop, and I hit that to try to turn it, and of course what I did was knock the blade off. And we did get it arranged, all cleaned up, and the new line put on his outfit and everything, but when he started trolling, it was sort of chunk, wobbling all over the place. Anyhow, that was part of it, and then when we were headed back, we made a big tow line of all the boats. We picked up other people's boats and headed back because the cocktail hour was on, dinner was to be served and everything. And there was something that happened there. Oh, I guess I was pulling somebody. I had his anchor in my boat and I was pulling him along, and I had a little 7.5 horse Mercury which was working quite well. And anyhow, we were getting close to the shore and I dropped the anchor off. Well, and he just sat there. He was thinking that he was still being towed, but he wasn't. Everybody else went by him and he was just sitting there happy as could be.
So Dick, one other question. You know, you've been quite active in the Yakima River area. You know, mapping and contributing to. We just had last weekend. We came over for a cleanup, helping them clean up the river. But tell us a little bit about your fishing group over here.
Well, it's a young group. It's just I think started about 1.5 years ago, and it's having some problems about continuity. And it has gotten quite a few members from the west side, and that it's good to have the membership, but it's not good to have them that far removed from the headquarters, which is based here in Ellensburg, well, between Ellensburg and Yakima. So it's struggling, and they're trying to do some fundraising activities, and of course they've been involved in 2 or 3 of the river cleanups and maintaining some of the accesses to the river too. So we hope it'll get going.
So now I have a question which you may or may not want to share with us, Dick, about you have a pond over here somewhere that's a secret pond to some of the members. How did that come about? How good is the fishing there? I've heard it's quite good.
It can be. No, I got associated with this group that leases the pond from they're doctors and lawyers and stockbrokers and stuff, and it's on the west side, and they had the pond for about 3 years, and the fishing was going down considerably. And of course, the more the fishing went down, the more fish they bought and put in there. And when I went out there, that was in fall of '88, and
was it Dr. Duryun that?
Yeah. Anyhow, they got in touch with me through some mutual friends, and went out and they caught a couple fish. Well, they were about that long and about that deep. And I looked at them and looked at the stomachs, and well, there's a certain indicator that well-being of the fish, the pyloric ceca, they're part of the stomach. And if they're real brittle or small and brittle, that means the fish is starving.
Oh.
And of course the stomach contents was a little bit of grass and a little bit of sand and rocks and stuff. So it was obvious that they'd overplanted and all that. So they said, well, what do we do? And I said, well, one thing, if you want to keep the fishing like it should be, we're gonna have to do some artificial feeding. And we set that up, and it's been happy fishing since
Good.
then. So.
I know there's been some of the members that have been able to go there, as I say.
Sometimes, well, I have to fish it quite a bit, of course, as a test fishing operation.
Of course.
Some of the other people in the fly club that I know are, well, I have them calibrated to their fishing efficiency, and I can, equate their success with the contribution of the fish and the fishing in there. So
That's funny. That's great.
It's worked out. Then I got involved with 2 or 3 other ponds too, and it's interesting, and I'm happy to be helpful to some of these people to have a pond with fish that they want in it and the fishing in it.
So do you spend a lot of time on the Yakima fishing? I mean, do you fish the river that much?
I really haven't all that much lately. I think I used to fish it more before we moved over here so close to it. We're about 3 miles from it here.
Right.
And, but I've been active in trying to, maintain the river as a recreational resource and to increase access and such to it. And when you mentioned the map, but when we first moved over here, well, I like maps, you know, they're just like
Mhm.
little models of the actual part of the earth you're interested in. And I went to the university bookstore, and they had a map there. There was one sheet, and you folded it out. So it was so full of omissions and errors that, you know, I felt it was a waste of money. I think the thing sold for about $1.25 or so. And it was one of the classes at the university that had put the map together. And I went to their counselor, who was in the geography department, and we discussed that as diplomatically as possible. And he said, well, probably there should be somebody that could, you know, produce a bigger map. So I was a new and raucous member of the Kittitas County Field and Stream Club, and I got them, I sold them a deal, and they put up $11,000 for the first issue of the map.
Wow.
And we got one of the graduate students in cartography at the university to do the actual cartography for the whole thing, put it together, and did a hell of a good job. And anyhow, the first edition was, I think we had about 2,600 copies of the thing.
Wow.
And that was in '93, and we were sold out on that by, about '99, I guess. And so I went back to the club and said, we need to have a new edition, and did that, and got about 2,000 more. And we're just about out of them now. So anyhow, we think it's a pretty good map of
That's great.
the Yakima River here in Kittitas County.
So any other secret patterns you've been working on that we need to know about?
Well, there's a subshank parachute moose mane upright that works pretty good. Now, are you sorry you asked?
Yeah, right.
No, a few years back, I was looking at a bug on the water. I guess it was out here at the pond. It was a mayfly and coming up, and I just noticed it was close enough, right close to shore. In fact, I wasn't in the boat, and I could see that its legs were spread out, but the upper part of the body was not touching the water at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of struck me that, you know, why can't we better imitate that stance on the water? And the moose mane upright thing, of course, could leave a post on the bottom of the shaft of the fly.
Right.
And so I tried to do some of that, and then used the post to wrap the parachute underneath the shank of the hook.
Oh,
Around
okay.
the base part of that moose mane upright, which makes a very good post for it. And I tried it, I guess the first time I tried it was up at Elegant, and it worked quite good. I put a couple of them, just on the water, and by golly, it sat there looking an awful lot like a natural insect. And a few of the fish thought so too, and I haven't done anything with it, but now I find out that somebody else back in Pennsylvania has come up with the idea too of a parachute under the shank.
Under the shank.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Huh.
Mm.
Did you guide up at Elegant? How long were you? Did you
I was
a
up there.
gilly or whatever they call it?
Well, a fly fishing consultant.
Okay.
We couldn't, take any compensation for it because
Right.
of the labor laws
Yes.
up there. But that was enjoyable. We met a lot of nice people, and we ended up transplanting some fish up to one of Mo's favorite ponds that didn't have any fish in it. And then one time I conned them into supporting me while I did a bottom survey of the whole lake with my little
Oh, that's right.
sonic device. And
Right.
they
In
got
fact, that map is that's a really
Pretty
valuable
good map.
piece of goods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mo has that up at the lodge. He has
Mhm.
those maps are up there.
Mhm.
I don't know if he has extra copies of them, but I have seen it and studied it, and
Oh.
it's really useful to have that.
A lot of people, I think, asked about, how deep is it out there?
Right.
So it worked out pretty good.
So Dick, any comments about club direction, philosophy that you'd like to put on this interview, as they say?
Well, I think one of the potential tragedies of any organization is membership senility, and I think that there has to be a young membership recruitment program of some sort. And I think, as we discussed earlier, even a junior auxiliary group or something to get young people in it. And as you mentioned this morning, that there's time when young people get married and they're either in college or just after college, and they are involved in so many other things and other responsibilities that they really can't join really in full force the fly fishing club. But they should be attracted to it in some way, and then later on, when things sort of stabilize, then they can become an active member. And I think that type of program should be followed closely to see how it's doing.
Yeah, Dick and I talked about that a little bit earlier this morning before we started the formal taping of this, and I know I mentioned to him that Chris Christopherson has been working with one of those high schools, I think it's Garfield, I'm not positive of that, but where we kind of got an affiliate group starting their own fly fishing course, for the students, and it's run by the students for the students, and the hope is that those people will ultimately be recruitment for the Washington Fly Fishing Club because of the association, and hopefully that will work out. So, well, Richard, it's been fun. Any last parting shots?
Well, you misquoted me from one of my statements at a board meeting years ago, I think. But back then, fly fishermen were decidedly the minority in the whole outdoor recreational scene. And I think that some of our older members, Enos Bradner and Ralph Wall, some of the other older members were trying to convince the game department, as it was called at that time, that we needed more fly fishing water. And I think that the word that they got, you're such a small group, we can't cater to you. So that's when the real membership plan started for the Washington Fly Fishing Club. I think at that time there were about 60 members only. And it went, the membership grew by getting a lot of people in. And then I guess at one point, as you reminded me at a board meeting or something, I mentioned that we were creating our own competition pretty high. But that has happened, but still you need the numbers to have any kind of a political clout and getting things done that you feel indeed should be done.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Granted, we've created a lot more people that are out there on the streams, but at the same token, they're helping, keep the streams fly fishing only or the lakes fly fishing only. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, as they call it. So that is good. Yeah. Well, Dick, thank you very much for this opportunity, and
thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, great. The club will enjoy this for sure. So we'll sign off, and Betty's sitting over here. We can't get her in the picture right now, but she's been critiquing us as we go. So, all right. Thank you very much, Dick.
Well, you're very welcome.
All right.